This is the story of a mafia boss who discovered his son was working for the enemy. Story angle: family loyalty versus betrayal. The gunshot came before I heard footsteps.
You shouldn't have come here,
I was
son.
standing at the edge of
who sent
Carmine
you?
Street when my men dragged a masked figure out of the shadows. We had been tracking this informant for 3 weeks. It was supposed to be clean, quick, easy. But when my enforcer, Bruno, ripped the mask off, we all went still. This was not the man we were looking for. This was a boy, maybe 19, shaking like a leaf in winter rain. His eyes were wide and wet and locked on mine like he knew exactly who I was. "Where did you find him?" I asked. "Outside the drop point, Don Salvatore." He was waiting. I looked at the boy for a long time. Someone sent him here on purpose. Someone who knew our route, our timing, our target. Someone on the inside. This was supposed to be an easy hit. But what happened next changed everything. My name is Salvatore Mancini. I have run this city for 22 years. Not from a throne. From a table, the same oak table my father used, in the same backroom of the same restaurant on Via Rosso. People fear the name Mancini the way they fear bad weather. You don't see it coming until it is already on top of you. I built this empire with 2 things, loyalty and patience. I rewarded the first. I had no use for anything that threatened the second. My son Marco was 26. Tall, dark-haired, sharp like his mother had been. I trusted him with collections, with meetings, with my name. He sat at my table. He ate my food. He kissed my cheek every Sunday. 3 days after the Carmine Street incident, an envelope arrived at my door. No return address. Inside was a single line typed in black ink. "Someone close is leaking to the Valenti family." I read it twice. Then I folded it and put it in my jacket pocket and said nothing to anyone. I started watching Marco the following week. Not, obviously. I am not a man who panics and asks the wrong questions at the wrong time. I watched the way you watch a fire. From a distance, without touching it, trying to understand how it started before you decide whether to put it out. Marco began coming home late. 3, sometimes 4 in the morning. He said it was business. Collections in the South Quarter. I nodded. I did not push. But I noticed things. The way he tilted his phone away from me when a message arrived. The way he cleared his throat before answering a simple question. The way his eyes moved to the door when we talked about the Valenti territory. Small things. The kind of things a father notices and then tells himself he is imagining. On a Thursday evening, Nico, the man who runs the laundry on Borelli Lane, called me. He said he had seen Marco near the old shipping warehouse on the waterfront, standing in the dark with a man he did not recognize. I thanked Nico. I hung up. I sat in my chair by the window for a long time. The fire was real. I sent Lorenzo to follow Marco the next night. Lorenzo had been with me for 16 years. He was quiet, reliable, and invisible in a crowd, which is exactly what I needed. I told him to stay far back, say nothing, and bring me whatever he found. He returned at 2 in the morning. He placed a photograph on my table without saying a word. I picked it up and held it under the lamp. Marco was standing outside a warehouse I did not own. He was in a dark coat, one hand extended. And he was shaking hands with Antonio Valenti. Antonio Valenti, the son of Enzo Valenti, the man who had tried to take my territory 3 years ago. The man I had pushed back across the river at great cost. I set the photograph down slowly. Lorenzo was still standing there, watching me. "Does anyone else know?" I asked. "No, Don Salvatore. Only me. Keep it that way." He nodded and left. I sat alone with the photograph and felt something cold move through my chest. Not just anger. Something deeper than anger. Something that had no clean name. I confronted Marco the next evening. Not directly. Subtly, the way you test ice before you walk on it. We were having dinner. Just the two of us. I poured the wine myself and asked him how the South Quarter collections had gone. He answered smoothly, confident, looked me in the eye without blinking. He was good. I almost believed him. I heard there was some activity near the waterfront, I said casually. His jaw moved. Very small. Almost nothing. Nothing significant, he said. I had Bruno check it out. Bruno, I repeated. Yes. I nodded and changed the subject. But I watched his right hand under the table. It was very still. Too still. The way a hand goes still when the body is working hard not to show something. We finished dinner. He kissed my cheek and left. 3 minutes later, I had my man Pio check the security camera at the front gate. Marco had stopped at the end of the driveway and looked at his phone. His face had changed completely the moment he thought no one was watching. Then he typed something fast and walked to his car. Someone had already texted him before he reached the gate. The boss knows. Act fast. I sent Pio to track Marco's movements that Friday night. Marco drove to the Valenti warehouse on the east side of the river. Pio watched from the roof of a neighboring building with a long-range camera and reported back by earpiece. Marco went inside. 2 Valenti soldiers were at the door. No weapons were shown, which meant this was a planned meeting, not a confrontation.
The terms are final.
Then Pio said something that stopped my blood cold.
No delays.
Don Salvatore. Giovanni is inside. Giovanni. My capo for the Northern Quarter. A man who had buried 2 of his brothers in service to this family. A man I had paid for his daughter's wedding. Could he be a mole too? Or was Marco using him? I had no answer. Then Pio's voice cut out. A gunshot echoed across the river. Then silence. Pio, I said into the earpiece. Pio. Nothing. I did not sleep that night. Pio survived. Grazed shoulder. He was back on his feet by morning, but shaken. He told me what he had seen through the window before the shot. Marco handing over a folded document to Antonio Valenti. Not money. Not a map. A list. I used every contact I had to intercept the document before it left the warehouse. My man at the East Docks pulled it from a courier bag at 4 in the morning. I unfolded it at my kitchen table with a single lamp burning. It was a hit list. Names. Locations. Schedules. Every detail about my closest men, when they moved, where they slept, which routes they used. Information that could only come from someone inside this family. At the bottom of the list, circled in red ink, was one name. Fabrizio. My consigliere. My oldest friend. The man who had stood beside me at my wife's funeral. Marco was planning to have Fabrizio killed. I folded the paper. I pressed both hands flat on the table. I breathed. My own son. I sat with what I knew for exactly 24 hours before I allowed myself to feel it. That is how I was trained. By my father. By this life. You gather every fact first. You let the picture become complete. Then and only then do you let yourself understand what you are looking at. What I was looking at was not a mistake. It was not desperation. Marco had not stumbled into the Valenti orbit. He had walked into it. Planned. Organized. Patient. He had done it the way I had taught him to do everything. Slowly, quietly, without leaving a trail. He had learned from me. And he had used what I taught him against me. It was Lorenzo. Lorenzo, who had been with me for 16 years. Lorenzo, who had brought me the photograph. Lorenzo, who had been the first person I trusted with the information about Marco. Lorenzo, who had been feeding the Valenti family my responses to the investigation the entire time. He had not just been watching Marco for me. He had been watching me for Marco. I was still sitting at the table, completely still, when the door to my office opened. Lorenzo walked in. No weapon. No urgency. Just his hands loose at his sides and a small, steady smile on his face. You found it, he said. I did not reach for my weapon. I looked at Lorenzo for a long moment, the way you look at a painting you thought you understood and are now seeing clearly for the first time. How long? I asked. 14 months, he said. No hesitation. He was past hiding. Marco came to you. Marco made sense, Lorenzo said. He offered a structure that worked. You are a great man, Don Salvatore. But the world is moving. He understood that. He understood nothing, I said quietly. He only learned to be patient. He did not learn what the patience was for. Lorenzo's smile did not move. But something behind his eyes shifted. You were like a second son to me, I said. I know. That is what makes this simple. I did not raise my voice. I did not perform anger. I simply looked at him the way my father had taught me. Clearly, completely, without looking away. The gunshot came from behind Lorenzo. Bruno had been standing in the hallway the entire time. Lorenzo fell without another word. I closed my eyes for exactly 3 seconds. Then I stood up and buttoned my jacket. Marco had made his move. Now I would make mine. The final night came 48 hours later. Marco had regrouped with the Valenti forces on the south side. They moved on our territory at midnight, 12 men hitting 3 locations simultaneously. They burned the warehouse on Tessari Street. They took 2 of my collection points. They pushed hard and fast, the way young men might. Bruno held the northern point with 6 men. Fabrizio secured the money and the accounts 2 hours before the first shot was fired. Pio led a counter-movement through the back streets that the Valenti soldiers did not know we owned. We did not fight the way they expected. We did not meet force with force in the open. We closed around them the way water closes around a stone, slowly, from every direction, until there is nowhere left to go. By 3 in the morning, the Valenti push had collapsed. Antonio Valenti retreated across the river. His men followed. 2 did not make it. Marco was the last one standing in the street outside the Tessari warehouse. He had a gun. He could hear my men closing in from 3 directions. He could see me walking toward him alone through the smoke. He did not fire. His arm lowered slowly. He looked at me across the distance and I saw his face break, just slightly, just once, before he pulled it back together. The gun fell from his hand. He had chosen this life over his family. But at the end, standing in the ash and the smoke, he could not raise a weapon at his father. I took Marco myself. No one else touched him. We sat across from each other in the back room on Via Rosso, at the same oak table where he had eaten 1,000 meals. The same table where I had taught him how this world worked. The same lamp. The same silence. He did not apologize. I did not ask him to. Apologies in this life mean nothing without the choice that should have come before them. You wanted power, I said. I wanted my own, he said. You had it. You had my name. You had everything I built. I wanted what I built, he said quietly. Not what you handed me. I looked at my son. I saw the ambition. I saw the intelligence. I saw the thing I had never given him space to be, his own man, separate from my shadow. It did not make what he had done forgivable, but it made it something I could understand. Marco was removed from the family. Not killed. Not handed to the authorities. Removed. He would leave the city. He would not return. He would live, but without the name, without the territory, without the empire he had tried to take. Some men thought I was soft. I let them think it. The family survived. Fractured, scarred, and quieter than it had been. But standing. Fabrizio poured 2 glasses at the table that night and sat across from me without speaking for a long time. What now? He asked finally. We rebuild, I said. Carefully. From the inside out. He nodded. Betrayal comes from the heart. That is what makes it the deepest wound. A knife from an enemy cuts the body. A knife from your own blood cuts something you cannot bandage or replace. But power, real power, does not fall because of one wound. It adapts. It closes. It finds its footing again. The Valenti family was not finished. I knew that. They would regroup across the river, find new allies, try again. This was only the beginning.
Power, loyalty. In this world, every choice has a price. Stay tuned, the story is just beginning.